So before going to discussing this process management, first I'll give an example so that you can map what we are talking about. Fine. So let's say the task is building. So the task is building a house. Right. So to build a house, that is the task. So in that task, so there will be a engineer. Okay. There will be a civil engineer who will plan the let's say design and the structure of the house. Okay. But the engineer will not build the house. Okay, he will not build the house, engineer, right? So to build the house, so he will take the help of, right? So let's say a manager. He will take the help of a manager. So this manager is also known as, so in local terms, he is also called as Mestri, right? So he is also called as Mestri in local words. So engineer will not build the house. So to build the house, he has to take the help of this manager, right? So and this manager again, or Mestri will not build the house, right? Again, he has to take the help of someone else who are nothing but the workers, right? So the workers. So like this, so these workers are also known as masons. You can call them as mason works. So they do the physical building work. Okay, so whatever they deal with the cement and the bricks. Okay, so the sand, everything. So they mix and they construct the house. So these are the persons who actually do the work. Okay, so whenever you say building a house, so an engineer will not build the house. He has to take the help of a manager, who is also known as Mestri, and this manager again he will not build the house. He has to take the help of the workers. So ultimately, these workers are nothing but who will do the job, the physical job of constructing the house. So this is the arrangement. And so remember this arrangement. Why? Because we will map each of these to our scenarios now, okay, in process management. Right? Yeah. So with this, I'll come to the process management. So a program is a passive entity. So whatever the program you write, a C program, C++, a Java program, whatever you write, it is a passive entity and that it does not perform any actions by itself. Okay, so a physical program that you write, it will not perform any actions by itself. So not to perform action, it has to be executed. Okay, so whenever the program is executed only, it will do some job. Fine, it will do some job if the action it calls for are to take place. So whatever it has to do, it will do that only if it is executed. Right. So now to map this particular, you can say concept here. So engineer, so we can consider this engineer as a program. Okay, so engineer is nothing but a program. So a program will not do any work by itself. It has to be executed to do a work. So engineer is analogous to program here for our example. Fine, remember that. Next. So the process concept helps to explain, understand, and organize execution of programs in an OS. Right? So we'll come to the concept of process now. So program. So below the program in the hierarchy, there will be what is known as process. So we shall see what is a process now. So a process is nothing but an execution of a program. It's an execution of a program. It actually performs the actions. Okay, so that is what is a process. So process is nothing but it's a program under execution. That is what you can call. Right? A program under execution is nothing but process. So it is the entity that actually performs the action. So now, if to come to our example, if you want to map a process here, so we'll map process to the manager or Mestri. So the Mestri is analogous to the process. Okay. So to build a house or to execute, so a program execution means, that is engineer means, he will not do the job of building the house. So he has to take the help of the manager. So a manager is nothing but, the Mestri is nothing but the process. Okay, so what is the process? A program under execution is the process. And you can see a process is an execution. He says is an execution. So why it is an? Because there can be several processes. Okay, there can be several processes that may represent execution of same program specified in a program. Fine. So that means a program, okay, any program can have multiple processes. Okay, so let's say this program has two processes, P1 and P2. So both the process belong to the same program. Fine. So they represent the execution of the same program. So it doesn't mean that one program should have only one process. No. So one program can have multiple processes. So this situation arises when several executions of a program are initiated, each with its own data. And when a program is coded using concurrent programming techniques in its execution. Okay, so that means whenever you use concurrent programming techniques, so a program can be split into, let's say, multiple entities, fine, and each entity is executed by a separate process. So this is allowed because of concurrent programming. Concurrent programming. Right? So concurrent programming means a program is split into multiple, you can say, entities, and each entity will be executed by a separate process, and this execution takes place simultaneously. And all these processes, so for this example, it's P1 and P2, they work together and they work simultaneously to complete this program. They work to complete this program. Right? So that is what is the concept of process. So a program cannot do anything by itself, it has to be executed. See, and a program under execution is known as a process, and a program can have multiple processes, right, under execution, so that all these execute and they do the job, right? They collectively do the job so that the overall program completes. That is the concept. So an operating system shares the CPU among processes. Right? So always the OS deals with sharing the CPU among processes. Okay, it will not share the CPU among programs. No, so a program under execution is nothing but a process, and there can be multiple processes for a same program. So the OS deals with processes. Okay, so this is how it gets user programs to execute. Fine, this is how it gets the user program to execute. A program uses processes to achieve execution of programs. Okay, so a programmer uses processes to achieve the execution of program in a sequential or concurrent manner as desired. See, there can be some programs written wherein it cannot be executed concurrently. So that is, it cannot be split into entities. So the entire program is considered to be a single entity, and there will be only one process for that entire program. In such case, the program will be executed sequentially. Only one process for that entire program. Or there can be multiple processes for that program, so wherein each process will be executed simultaneously, which is nothing but concurrent manner. Okay, concurrent execution. So an OS uses processes to organize execution of programs. Right? So use of process concept enables an OS to execute both sequential and concurrent programs equally easily. Okay, so the OS deals with processes. It will organize and it will deal with processes so that the execution of programs will go on smoothly. Right? So next comes the concept of thread. Fine. So what is a thread? A thread is a execution of a program that uses the environment of a process. That is its code, data, and resources. So a thread is again equals execution of program, but it uses the environment of process. So now if we come to our example, so we have mapped the program to engineer. So and we have mapped the process to the maestri or the manager. So now coming to the workers, so who will do the actual work of constructing the house? So that is nothing but the threads. Okay, nothing but the threads. So what are threads? These are the actual workers. So because of the threads only, the process will progress, and whenever the process progresses, the program execution will also progress. Okay, so now hope you got why I gave this analogy, okay, of an engineer, manager, and workers. So workers are nothing but threads. So actually, actual workers, actual persons who build the house, or actual entities that execute the program are nothing but the threads. Okay, so whenever threads execute, whenever threads progress, the processes will progress, and whenever the processes will progress, the program will progress. Right? So one more analogy I can give is, so let's say humans. So this is the hierarchy. So humans. So in order for the humans to function, so the organs should function. Okay, so organs like hands, legs, okay, the brain, fine, the heart, like that. So in order for the humans to progress, or in order to humans to work, for humans to work, the organs should work, and for the organs to work, ultimately the cells should work. Okay, the cells should work. So here you can map the cells to the threads, fine. So you can map the organs to processes, fine, and you can map humans to the program. So this is how it works, the hierarchy. For the program to process, or for the program to progress, the processes should progress. So for the processes to progress, the threads should progress. That is the concept. Right? So program, process, and thread. So if many threads use the environment of same process, they share its code, data, and resources. Right? So an OS uses this fact to reduce its overhead while switching between such threads. So that means here, so as I told, the program can have multiple processes. So for this example, P1 and P2, and each process can have multiple threads. So let's say process 1 has thread T11 and T12, multiple threads. And process P2, let's say it has again multiple threads T21, this is T22, and this is T23, multiple threads. Okay, so these threads share the environment of the process, that is the code, the data, and the resources that are allocated to a process. So the same environment is shared by these threads. Okay, so threads are not allocated separate memory, separate code memory, data memory, separate resources, like that. No. So whatever the resources that are allocated to the process, that the same resources are shared by the threads. If there are multiple threads, they share the resources of the same process. So for P2, you can see there are 3 threads that will share the environment of the process P2. Fine. So this is the basic concept how the execution of a program takes place. Fine. So a program is executing means its processes are executing, and its processes are executing means its threads are executing. That's what. Right? So now we'll talk about implementing processes. So in operating system view, fine, you can call it as the OS view of the processes. Fine, so it can be asked for 5 or 6 marks. Explain the OS view of processes. So the operating system's view of process. The process is unit of computational work. Fine, so it is a unit of computational work. Hence, the kernel's primary task is to control operation of processes to provide effective utilization of computer system. Fine. So whenever we talk about process, so it is the process that we are trying to schedule. It is the process that we are trying to share the CPU. It is the process that we are trying to allot the resources. It is the process that we are trying to allot the memory. Okay, so we will talk about process, not the program. So hence, the OS concentrates on process and how to implement this process. So accordingly, the kernel allocates resource to a process. So any resource allocated will be allocated to process only. So memory will be allocated, some devices will be allocated, some registers will be allocated to the process. Protects the process and its resources from interference by other processes and ensures that the process gets to use the CPU until it completes its operation. Right? So whenever you want to make a progress, that is whenever the program wants to make progress, or whenever it wants to complete its execution, it has to complete its execution whenever its process gets the CPU. Okay, so any program or process to complete itself should be allocated the CPU, because the CPU is the entity which will execute the instructions. So whenever you execute the instructions only, that process will progress. And if that process progresses, obviously the program will progress. And so that is why CPU is needed. CPU is needed to execute the instructions of the process. So the kernel is activated when an event, which is a situation that requires the kernel's attention, leads to either hardware interrupt or system call. See, one more thing I'll make clear. So kernel is nothing but it's the core of the OS. Fine. So OS means, so OS will be again split into essential and non-essential parts. Okay. So or you can say more essential and less essential parts. So the more essential parts are nothing but the kernel. Kernel is the heart of the operating system. The main tasks will be carried out by the kernel only. Fine. See, these processes, so let's say the process requests for a resource. Let's say it is requesting a memory. It requests a memory. Let's say of 1 MB. It wants some 1 MB of memory. So how will it request the OS for 1 MB of memory? That request is known as an event. Right? The request is known as event. So or a system call. So the process talks to the OS using these system calls. Okay, so they communicate to the OS with the system calls. If they want something, if they want a resource like memory or a IO device or a CPU, so they contact the OS through what are known as events or system calls. So the OS and the process, or the kernel and the process, they talk using the system calls only. Right? So the system call, by the system call, the kernel comes to know that something is some attention is needed for that particular call. Right? Yes, see, fundamental functions of kernel for controlling processes. So what are the fundamental functions that are performed by the kernel, which is nothing but the heart of the operating system, so that it will control a process. It will control a process. So whenever an event takes place, that is nothing but a system call takes place. So what will happen is, first thing is context save will happen, then event handling, then scheduling, and then dispatch. Right? So these are the you can say 4 functions that a kernel will do to handle any process. Okay? So first we shall see what is a context save. So context save. So saving CPU state and information concerning resources of the process whose operation is interrupted. So what do you mean by this is, so let's say you want to, so you are doing some job, okay, and you are interrupted. So what will happen? So whenever a CPU is doing some job and it is interrupted, what will happen? So first thing, okay, so I'll give an example for that again, because these concepts can be easily understood by the day-to-day activities. Right? So let's say you are studying, let's say M3 or M4. So you are studying M3 or M4. Fine. So in this M3 or M4, so you are solving some problem. Okay. So that problem is, let's say it is, it will take more time. So you are solving that. So you are solving that stepwise. Fine. Stepwise. So let's say there are 5 steps in that. So you are in step 1. So step 1 is completed, then you are in step 2, right? So in step 2, you are doing some operation using calculator. So you are doing some calculations using the scientific calculator, okay? And you have got some result, fine? So some result you have got. So let's say I'll call that as R, that result. So that result is needed for going to step 3, because this problem can be solved in steps, and there are 5 steps. You are in step 2 and you have got some result using the calculator, and this result is used for, and it is useful for step 3. So without this result you cannot go to step 3, right? So then what will happen? So you have got the result using the calculator. You are about to go to step 3, but at that point you are interrupted. So at this particular point you are interrupted by someone. Let's say you get a call. Okay. So you're interrupted, you get a call. Fine. So what will you do now? You will directly attend that call? No, you will not directly attend that call, because see, already you have made some progress in solving this problem. So which is a 5-step solution. So out of which you have already completed step 2 and you have got some intermediate result. So if you directly attend that interrupt, that is whatever the call that you have got, so the progress that you have made will be lost. So if this progress is lost, you have to again come from step 1. Again, you have to spend time for going for coming from step 1. So this should not happen. The progress that you have made till now should not be lost. So that is why what will happen is, before you particularly attend that interrupt that has arrived, so nothing but the call that you have got. So what is done is this context, this present context. Okay, so context means the present intermediate results, the CPU state. Okay, so what we'll come to CPU state later, what that means. But time being, remember that context means the CPU state and the intermediate results. Okay, the intermediate values that are there in the registers, whatever. So that present context, this should be saved. Okay, so this should be saved. So why this should be saved? Because once you attend this interrupt, that is the call, okay, that interrupt is attempted and the call is over. So you should come back, okay, to whatever the progress you had made. You should not start it over. Okay, you should not go and start the problem once again. No, that should not happen. So once this interrupt is completed, you have to come back to wherever you had stopped, wherever you had paused. Okay, so that you can continue from this, whatever the intermediate results. So let's say you attend that call and you finish that call. So since you have already saved the context, so let's say you will write down this. You will write down all these intermediate values somewhere in the book. Okay, you will write down these values somewhere in the book. Once you write down, then you attend that call. So once you attend that call and finish, you will come back to this notebook where you have written down these values. Okay, written down these intermediate results. And since you have written down them, so you need not calculate them once again. So you can directly go to step 3. Fine, step 3, and then go to step 4, and then go to step 5 and complete the problem. Fine. So now, so hope you got what will happen whenever an interrupt arrives. First thing is you have to save the context. The context means the intermediate results, the CPU state, the register values, whatever. Fine, the memory values. So once you save it, you write it down somewhere. So write it down somewhere means you will save it in some memory. Okay. Then you attend that interrupt, finish that interrupt, and come back and retrieve the saved context. So you will retrieve them, you will retrieve the saved context, and you can continue your job. So this is what will happen. The same thing is explained here. So context save. Fine. So as soon as an event comes, so this event is a system call or an interrupt. So as soon as the interrupt comes, first thing the OS will do is it will save the CPU state and information concerning resources of the process whose operation is interrupted. It will save this because it is needed later. Next is event handling. So what is event handling means? See, whatever this event has come, okay? See here, in our case, a call had come. Fine, a call had come. So you have to handle this call. So how will you handle this call? You will receive the call. Fine, you will receive the call. You will talk. So what is the matter and all, and you will give the solution. So whatever the call is about, and then you will come back. So this handling this call, handling this interrupt is nothing but event handling. So this event, as I told, it can be an interrupt or a system call. So that is what is event handling. Analyzing the condition that led to the interrupt. So why that event came, why that interrupt came. Okay, so why that call came from your friend. So to analyze that, or what is the request by the process that led to system call, and take appropriate actions. Okay, so system call can also be happening. Why? Because the system calls happen whenever the process requests for something. So some process requests the access to some, you can say, a resource like a memory or a printer or a scanner, like that. And you have to analyze why it has come, and you have to take the appropriate actions. So that is what is event handling. So this will be done by kernel only. Okay. So next is scheduling. Scheduling means selecting the process to be executed next on the CPU. Okay, so which is the process that needs to be executed next on the CPU. So for this example, so whenever you get the interrupt, that is the call. Okay, so you know that the call, this interrupt has come. So now what you have to do? What you have to do? You have to analyze which interrupt has come. Okay, so that is event handling. You have to analyze which interrupt has come and why it has come. Once you analyze why it has come, you have to execute the ISR for that interrupt. You have to execute the interrupt service routine for that interrupt that has come. Okay, because it has to be serviced, right? So that is what is scheduling. So you have to select the next process that needs to be executed on the CPU. Now, in this case, you have to schedule the process that belongs to this ISR. Okay, so the process that belongs to this interrupt service routine to be executed next on the CPU. Why? Because this interrupt has to be serviced. So how will you service this interrupt? You have to execute the ISR, the interrupt service routine, which is nothing but the function that needs to be executed when this interrupt comes. So how will you execute this interrupt service routine? You have to execute the process that belongs to this interrupt service routine. So let's say that process is PI. So you have to execute this process. So how will you execute this process? You have to schedule this process to use the CPU. So the CPU will execute this process PI next. That is what is scheduling. Next is dispatching. So how will you dispatch? Setting up the access to resources of the scheduled process and loading its saved CPU state to begin or resume its operation. So you have to resume its operation. So now this PI, since you have to schedule PI to be executed by the CPU. So how will you schedule it? So you cannot directly execute it. Why? Because see, already this interrupt may have come before. So already this interrupt may have come before, and it may have already have the previous data, previous intermediate data, so that you have saved somewhere in the memory. Okay, so this interrupt that has come now, it might already have come before, and you might have processed it, and you might have some intermediate data here, which is already stored in the memory. So when this will be stored in the memory? During context save. During context save, previous context save. So you already saved it. So this intermediate saved content may have to be loaded to this process PI, because it has to resume its operation. Previously it has already come once. Okay, so again it has come now. So it might be linked to the previous data. So that is why you have to load this previous context to the process, so that it can resume its operation whenever it is given the CPU. So this process is known as dispatching. Okay. So what do you mean by setting up the access to the resources of the scheduled process and loading its already saved CPU state and the intermediate results so that it resumes the operation. Right. So this is what is the four things, four functions that the kernel performs whenever or to control the execution of processes. Right? So remember this. So without this, you will not understand the next concepts. Right? So next we'll come to the OS view of processes. So how the OS treats each process. Right? So how the OS keeps tracks of so many processes. Right? So I'll show you how many processes are currently running on my system. If you just go to Task Manager, right? If you just go to Task Manager, so you will come to know how many processes are running. See here. So these are all the processes that are currently running. See, Microsoft Edge. So it is one application, Edge, but it is having here how many processes? 23 processes. See, these many processes, this single program is having. So this is what is concurrent execution, as I told. Getting the concept? So the document reader I'm using, Foxit reader, it is having two processes. Right? So the Microsoft Word is having a single process here. So there are examples here for single processes also. So some programs are having single processes, some are having multiple processes. See how many processes are there? Background processes, 77, 76. Getting what I'm saying? See, the OS has to keep track of all these processes. Right? All these processes should be kept in check. So what they are doing, okay, which memory they are accessing, which IO they are doing, which let's say the process they belong to, like that. Okay. See, so many processes. So next comes to Windows process. So as I told, Windows processes. See, Windows, nothing but the OS is nothing but it's also software. So it has to run itself. So how it will run itself? It will also generate processes like this. See, these are all the kernel processes that are running. These are the kernel processes that will do the job of running the OS. See how many processes are there. Okay, so these should be kept in check. So you can see how much memory they are utilizing, how much CPU they are utilizing. So everything is there. So all these should be kept in check. Right? So how these will be kept in check? The OS will deal with them in the order that we will discuss now. So OS view of process. So how the OS will keep track of all the processes. We will see that now. Right? In operating systems view, a process is execution of a program. So a program under execution. Right? So to realize this, the OS creates processes, schedules them for use of the CPU and terminates them. So this we already seen, right? So whenever you say a program is running, it is nothing but a process is running, right? And we just saw that in the present in my laptop. So how many processes are there? Okay. So to perform scheduling, that is scheduling means you select. See, there were minimum 200 processes, right? So which process will get its chance to execute next? Okay. So that decision is nothing but scheduling, because among all those processes, you have to share the CPU. So in this laptop only there is only one CPU. Okay, and that CPU has two cores. It's a dual core CPU. So those two cores should be shared with all those processes. Okay, so you can just imagine the complexity. So there were minimum 200 processes, and all are running simultaneously, and all should be sharing the same CPU. And in this system, there is only one CPU with only two cores. So those two cores should be shared among all those processes. So how this is done and how fast this is done, right? And we will not come to know which process is using the CPU and how it is switching and when it is switching. We will not come to know that at all. So smooth the operation is taking place. So now you get the complexity of OS. So how it will manage all these things. Okay. So to perform scheduling, the OS must know which processes require the CPU at any given moment. Okay, so that is what keep track of the process. So the key to realizing operating system view of process is to monitor all processes. So you can see it. It is keep tracking or monitoring, or it is keeping an eye on all the processes that are presently there in the system. Okay, it is monitoring all the processes and know what each process is doing at any point of time. Okay, so it is keeping track of all the processes, and it is keeping track of what they are doing. Okay, at each moment of time, whether it is executing on the CPU, whether it is waiting for the CPU, or whether it is waiting for an IO operation to complete, or whether it is waiting to be swapped out or swapped into the memory. Right? So everything should be kept in track, and this is done by the kernel or nothing but the OS. So the OS uses notion of process state. Okay, so there are states for each process. So to keep track of what the process is doing at any point of time. So to keep track of process, so there are states. So the OS uses the concept of states. So in which state is the process? Okay. We shall see which are the states of the process. Okay. Next is execution of program. So in OS view, as I told, in OS view of process, it has to keep track of the process. So how it will keep track of the process? First thing is the concept of states, process states. Fine. What is the next thing? So next thing is here. So when a process is scheduled, the CPU executes instructions of the program, obviously. Okay, so as I told, if you say that program is under execution, that means the process that belongs to that program is under execution. So the process is under execution means the CPU is executing the instructions that belong to the process, which in turn belong to the program. That's all. Right? So when the CPU is switched to some other process, that is scheduling happens, because see, once you allocate a CPU to a process, that CPU will not be allocated to the process infinitely. No, that is not happening. So this we have already seen in time sharing systems. Okay, in multi-programming systems in module 1. So where the concept of priority is there, the concept of time is there. So the CPU will be shared among the processes, okay, based on some time, some fixed time, which is known as time slice, or the CPU shared using the concept of priorities. So only the highest priority process will get the CPU, like that. Okay, so once the CPU is given to a process, it will be taken away also from the CPU based on this time sharing or based on the process priorities. Okay, so whenever that CPU is taken away from the process, or it is switched to some other process, so the kernel saves the state of the CPU, that is context save, that we talked about just now, right? So this state is loaded back into the CPU when the process is scheduled again. So what do you mean by that is, suppose there are two processes in the system, just an example. So let's say the CPU is given to process 1. So CPU is utilized by process 1. And let's say it is time sharing system. So CPU is given to P1, process 1, for let's say 5 milliseconds. So after 5 milliseconds are over, so the CPU will be given to P2. So before the CPU is given to P2, what will happen is you will save the context of P1. So context of P1 is saved. So that is all the intermediate results are saved into memory. All the intermediate results, the CPU state, okay, the process, everything is saved to memory. So once the context save happens, and this context save will be done by the OS, the CPU will be given to P2 because it is time sharing. P2 is given the CPU. Okay, again, since it is time sharing, it will be given, P2 is given the CPU for 5 milliseconds again. So after 5 milliseconds are over, so again, immediately it will not be given to P1, but again context save will happen. The context save of the intermediate results of P2 will be done. Okay, again it will be saved to memory. Okay, so now before the CPU is given to P2, what will happen? See, already you have saved the intermediate results of P2 here. Already you have saved the intermediate results of P2. So now, before the CPU is given to P1, because P1 was given the chance, it was taken away. P2 was given the chance, it was taken away. So now P1 again gets its chance. So before P1 is scheduled in the CPU, or it gets the CPU, the already loaded results, the previously stored intermediate results, should be loaded to P1. Should be loaded to P1 so that it can resume its operation whenever it gets the CPU. Whenever it gets the CPU. So that is what is talked about here. So this state is loaded back. Whatever the state, whatever the intermediate results you had stored, okay, it will be loaded back to the CPU whenever the process is scheduled again. So whenever P1 gets its chance again, so these intermediate results that were stored, they will be loaded back again so that it can resume its operation from wherever it was previously paused or interrupted. Okay, this is the concept. These all things will be taken care by the OS. And so it is not so simple. The OS will take care of all this. So now to keep track of process, okay, so to identify which process we are dealing with, which process the OS is dealing with, because as I showed, there were 200 or more processes. You have to keep track of each process. So how will you identify a process and which program to which it belongs? So that identification is done using these 6 components. Okay, a process, each process is comprised of 6 components. So what are these 6 components? First thing is ID. There is a process ID. So what is this ID? It is just like giving a USN to each student, in university seat number to each student, so that that student can be identified among the thousands of students that are there. Fine. So this ID is nothing but a name given to that process. So it is a unique name or a number, an ID given to each process. That is the ID. This is the first component. Next is code. So code is nothing but the program code that the process is executing. So which instruction it is executing, in which, so which instruction is it executing, and in which memory location is those instructions present. That is the code. Next is data. So what is the data? The data and files used by the program's execution. So what are the intermediate data, the results it is storing? Okay. and which are the files it is accessing. Some programs, some processes may require to access some files. So which are those files that are currently accessed? So that is nothing but the data. So next is stack. So we already have known about stack. So in Cortex M3, right? So stack is used to store intermediate results during computation. So what is the address of the stack? So where are those intermediate addresses stored? Right? So that is the stack. Right? And resources. So resources is nothing but set of resources allocated to the OS. So a process could be allocated with a resource, let's say a printer. Guess which printer is allocated, which scanner is allocated, which memory locations are allocated. So those are resources. Finally, CPU state. So CPU state, so it consists of the PSW fields. PSW means program status 1. So all the you can say the flags. Okay, so the zero flag, the carry flag, the overflow flag, the negative flag. So all those fields. So that will be there in the CPU state as well as CPU registers. So some registers you will allocate. Okay, which are those registers? So a process is dealt with using these 6 components. So it is identified using these 6 components, which are those ID, code, data, stack, resources, and CPU state. So each process will have these 6 components, and this will be kept in track using the OS. Okay, so it is not an easy job to be an OS. Remember that. Right? So a OS is doing a hell lot of jobs, but we are not able to see that. That's all. So CPU state contains information like address of the instruction to be executed next, that is the PC, program counter, the condition code, which are nothing but the flags, nothing but PSWs, program status word, and then contents of CPU registers. Right? So CPU state changes as program execution proceeds. Obviously, because once you execute an instruction, so the flags will be updated. So it can be an add instruction you have executed, so the flags will be updated. So it can generate a carry flag, it can generate a overflow flag, like that. So that is what, whenever the execution progresses, the CPU state will also change. Right? So next is controlling the process. So now what we did was we sought a way to identify the processes. So because there are multiple processes, 200, 300 processes, you have to identify which process is that. So we did that using these 6 components. Okay, these 6 components. Next thing is, how will you control these processes? So once you identify them, how will you control these? So controlling is done in the following way. So the kernel allocates resources to process and schedules it for use of CPU. Accordingly, the OS view of process consists of 2 parts. First thing is code, data, and stack of the process, and information concerning memory and other resources such as files allocated to it. So this part comes here. So out of these 6 components, so code, data, stack, resource. So these are grouped into one category. Okay, so these are grouped into one category. Right? And the next thing is information concerning execution of programs such as process state, CPU state, including stack pointer. Okay, so this comes under second part. So that is the CPU state and the process ID. So these are classified into another part. So there are 2 parts we are dealing with: code, data, stack, resources. This is one part. Next is CPU state and ID. So this is how they are divided into 2 parts. Okay, if you go to this diagram, so this, the first part, the out of 2 parts, the first part, code, data, stack, and resource. So these are collectively known as process context. You can see here. So what this process context will have: code, data, stack, and the resources. So what are the information regarding the resources? the files, the resources it is using, the memory it is using. Okay, this is the first part. So what about the second part? So the second part that we are dealing with is the CPU state, fine, the CPU state and the process ID. So these two, the second part is called as the process control block, or PCB in short. So what this will have? It will have the process ID, it will have the process state, that is the CPU state, it will have the general purpose register contents and the program counter value. So that is the next instruction that needs to be executed. These are all in the PCB, right? So out of the 6 components that we discussed, 4 components are there in the process context, and remaining 2 are in the process control block. Okay, so you can see the OS view of a process. Fine. So first we shall see process context. So what do you mean by process context? We already know it contains 4 fields, which are those code, data, stack, and resources. So this process context is also known as process environment. Both are same. Don't get confused. Process environment is same as process context. So the process environment contains address space of the process. So address space means code, data, stack. That means where is the code, that is in which memory location is the code, the instructions of the process located, in which memory location is the data for this instructions located, and in which memory location is the intermediate results that are calculated, that is the stack located, and all information necessary for accessing and controlling the resources allocated. You can see the resource info. So all these come under process environment, which is also known as process context. So these are explained here. So what are the process environment or context details? First is address space, nothing but code, data, stack components. Memory allocation information. So information concerning memory areas allocated to process. So which is the memory area allocated, because each process will be given a memory area. Fine. So what is the range of that memory? How much memory is allocated? Everything is stored here. Right. So this information is used by the memory management unit during operation of the process. So this memory management unit is one more essential service provided by the kernel. Next is status of file processing activities. Status means information about files being used, such as current positions in the files. Here, a file can have many data. Okay, so it can have a large data. So in that large data, which is the part that this process is accessing. Okay, so that you have to keep in track. So it is just like reading a book. So once you're reading a book, if some interrupt happens, what you will do is you will fold the page. Okay, so you will fold the page, or you will highlight the paragraph that you were reading using a pencil or a pen, so that once you come back after that interrupt, you can continue from that particular paragraph. So you have to keep track of that paragraph in a big book. Okay, so in a big file, which data are you accessing? You have to keep track. That is what. Next is process interaction information. So what this will have? Information necessary to control interaction of process with other processes. So as I told, there can be multiple processes for the same program, and all these processes are executing simultaneously to complete that program. So when this happens, say whenever concurrent execution happens, there will be obviously communication between processes. It is interaction between processes. Right? So that information is kept here. Okay? So resource information. So information concerning resources allocated to process. So as I told, if it is allocated with a printer, what is the name of the printer? If it is allocated with a disk, what is the name of the disk? Like that. After that, miscellaneous information. Okay. So all these come under process context. Fine. Process context. So next we'll talk about PCB, process control block. So what will be there in process control block? We already know it will have 2 fields. Out of 6 fields, it will have 2 fields. So which are those two fields? Process ID and the CPU state. So in CPU state, what we'll have? Process state, the general purpose register contents, and the PC values, the flags, everything. So that will come under PCB. Process control block.